All right, welcome to the second pre-recorded episode of Fallen World. Again, I said this last week, but this is not edited because I want it to blend in. I don't want people to go back and look at my show and say, hey, there's those 2 episodes that are pre-recorded and the only ones that aren't actually live. I want them to just feel like it kind of flows better and it's all nice. Even though I'm telling you it's live, I just don't want it to feel different from the other episodes. So I've always been very chatty and I have an intro and everything. I think the only difference here is that I'm not going to be answering the questions in the live chat as part of the video, just in the replies of the premiere. So yeah, next week we'll be actually live again. I'll be home, but right now I'm not home, not here. That's okay. So, sorry if you can hear the oven on in the background. I kind of wanted to just get this done and film this so I didn't have to, worry about it later and realize, oh, I still haven't done that, I have to do it. So this one is about politics, and it's called The Big Club, because I really just wanted to make a video about, kind of how things work, why they work that way, what can we do about it, what does it mean, and, should I be paranoid, should I be thinking everything is a conspiracy, or, what's actually going on, basically. And it doesn't really matter where you are in the world, although this is really mainly going to be applying to you if you live in the US. But if you do not live in the United States, I'm sure you can take this information and see how it applies to your own country and your own system, because it's pretty similar in other areas of the world. I just think the US kind of has it set up in the most interesting way, and that's what I enjoy talking about the most, because it's just first of all, it's where I grew up, it's where I live, and it's also, there's just so much going on, and there's so much to say, so it's just interesting. I did title this based on things that the comedian George Carlin has said, and he had a thing where he said, talking about the US, he said it's a big club and you ain't in it, and it's the same big club they use to beat you over the head when they tell you what to believe, something like that. And he talked about how the country has owners and things like that. So chapter 1 is called The Owners, and basically what I want to say about this is that power comes from wealth. We kind of have it set up where if you are the richest, you can outweigh the power of even the president or government workers, judges, the types of people, news, media, the information that people have access to. You're kind of in control of all of that just because you're rich. And that's really what money can buy. There's not a whole lot. It's a very, very short list of things money can't buy. And that's, I think, capitalism is definitely at least partially responsible for that, because the whole idea of capitalism is kind of valuing money and, individual, owning your own shit. And it's not really based on the idea that we can live together as a community. It's more based on the idea every man for himself, is my understanding of it. And this is exactly why it's so easy for wealthy people to kind of climb their way up to the top and stay there quietly, because all they're really interested in is their own power. We also have it set up where you don't get rich by having integrity. You don't get rich by having a good, strong moral code or being a loving, empathetic, positive person who cares about other people. You get rich by understanding the game you're playing and playing it cutthroat and making it to the top. Or you just come into a lot of money, which means you're going to be spoiled. So either way, you're probably not going to be the most down-to-earth, empathetic person. And you have to keep in mind these are the people that are really at the top. And this, honestly, that wealth kind of carries over into other countries. And these people aren't just, you know, rich and in power in this country. They're all over the place. They kind of are just at the very top. Now, there are private countries where, you know, people don't really have a lot of access to outside information. I guess I could use North Korea as an example of that. From what I understand, that is a pretty sheltered country. But, you know, what I mean is just that, like, there are always options to kind of shelter things and just have your own little society. But for the most part, the rich people kind of have access to everything and have the final say in things. And we can think of them as the owners of the country, because they bought everything. They just own it. They've, you know, everyone is just kind of, you know, doing whatever they say because they're the ones with the money. And people feel desperate and greedy. And, you know, I think that if you believe that the people in power, the people who we elect, the people who we praise, like the police or the government or the president or the people who work with the president in the White House, if the people who we perceived as having power were genuinely in power and also had integrity and good intentions, I think we'd be a lot happier and healthier. I think we would have a country filled with healthy citizens who are active and mindful and taking care of each other and respectful, and we would just be generally better off. But we're not. It's if you really take a good look at us, there are miserable people left and right. It almost seems like they're the only people you're going to meet are people who are just, you know, really struggling, just pushing and pushing and going against the grain, just trying to get to the end of the day. And that's really, I mean, this is kind of what leads me into chapter 2, which is keeping you dependent. And the first thing I have written here: never trust someone who has something to gain by being dishonest. Beware of government jobs or jobs that make a lot of money. And even the food in the US is notably less healthy than food in other countries. All three of these things are connected because... Sorry, just my grandpa wandering around. Well, he's not wandering around. He just, he's outside on the deck with the dog barking. I don't know if you could hear her. Anyway, part of me wants to edit that out, and I know that I can, but I'm not going to bother. I think if I edit it, it'll be lower quality. I want to upload it directly from my camera roll instead of putting it through a tool to edit it and then downloading it in lower quality. Uploading it like this, it's in 4K, so you're kind of getting a higher quality, a higher resolution than my usual videos. So that's a plus, if it matters, which I really don't think it does, because it's more about listening to what I'm saying than looking at me. I mean, you could be, doing the dishes or cooking dinner, or, I don't know, washing your face, brushing your teeth, just with headphones on, or I don't know, like however you listen to podcasts, you can listen to this. You really don't need to look at what I'm saying. But yeah, even the food in the US is notably less healthy. And if you look at the ingredients in certain foods, there's always like high fructose corn syrup and a bunch of extra unnecessary things that are in there. And and the food that people praise, the fast food, all of this stuff, it just keeps you unhealthy. And again, referencing George Carlin, he described people as too fat and happy to care, and just sort of like bought off in silence by toys. And it's just gotten worse since he was alive. He died in 2008, but it's just gotten worse. The technology has become so much more influential, where people are literally getting their information from controlled situations. The news, your phone. Honestly, if you just look at the news, you're like listening to what the person is saying and then reading a banner with a different thing of news at the bottom, and you're taking in two things at once. And people are being conditioned to be a lot more active when you're on your phone. There's so many things to do. People are ending up looking like they have ADHD and they don't. It's just because it's the way that we're conditioned in this society now to always be active, to always have something to do. You'll find that it's hard to just sit and watch a movie without like also looking at your phone or eating something while you're watching it. It's like you can't just sit still and focus on one thing because of the way things are set up. And that's because we want active workers and not mindful, healthy individuals. It's not about the individual. It's not about whether or not you're healthy. It's about whether or not you're helping the people in power to stay in power. And that is just reality. And you have to be aware of that. I'm not saying that I know who is in power. I'm not naming names. But I'm telling you, you have to be aware of the rich. And you have to be aware of jobs that depend on you depending on them. Because if you maybe you're a doctor and you realize that if everybody was healthy and if you or whoever you work under was distributing medicine and solutions and habits that would actually keep people away from the doctor, well, the doctors would not be getting their payment anymore. You would give somebody a plan to be healthy, and then they'd be done with you. And then they could share that plan for free with their friends, and then you'd just be out of a job. So we have jobs that literally depend on people staying unhealthy. So we have to keep them just healthy enough to trust that it's working, but not healthy enough to not need to come back. And this comes through in the food that's sold. It's all kind of part of the same thing because it's all coming from the same place. These wealthy people that kind of have a lot of different things. They have their hands on a lot of different things, and this includes, government jobs like police or anything that's kind of funded by insurance or science, things like that. They control the information that you hear just in general, and they make sure that you're buying a bunch of products, which is why you see advertisements left and right, because that's just all that it is. Everybody wants to promote their product and get you to spend your money on useless crap that you really don't need. And then that keeps you depending on your job, because if everybody stopped spending money on useless things they don't need, they would have more money than they know what to do with. You don't realize how much goes away on just getting a coffee every morning, or how much goes away when you just buy that one little thing that you saw online that you thought looked cool, and you're like, it's just one thing, and then it's one thing multiplied by how many times you decided it was just one thing. And then you end up realizing, when you add it all up, that you could have thousands and thousands of dollars just wasted. And I would even say tens of thousands of dollars wasted on little things that you absolutely do not need, and possibly even more than that, just because it was thrown in your face and you thought it would be cool. It adds up really fast. And if you stopped doing that, you probably wouldn't even need the job you have. You could probably quit and go find a different job, one that you enjoy more, one that pays less because you don't really need anything else now that you're not spending money on useless shit, and you can just enjoy your life. But that would be healthy and good for an American. However, it would not be good for the way the system is currently set up, because there would be a lot of people out of jobs as a result of this. And it would sort of, the way that the system is set up, all the people in power would just sort of, everything would just crumble. And again, George Carlin, he said that bullshit is the glue that binds us as a nation. Honesty would fuck this country up. And it's true. Because if people were more mindful and were aware of all of this, everything would just completely collapse. And I kind of want that to happen, because even though it would be pure chaos, it was always there, right under the surface. We just didn't want to acknowledge it, but it was there. It was just waiting for a reason to come up. And it's better to get that reason over with, than keep it under the surface. We need some kind of revolution, because this cannot continue like this. It's killing us. It's killing the planet. And we're not going to have a home much longer. We're going to end up killing each other. And this mentality of valuing power over everything else and feeling entitled to take other people's time, other people's energy, other people's money, and just abuse them because you feel entitled. You think of the universe as complete chaos, meaningless, random nonsense that has nothing to do with anything. It's all pointless. And you don't see any reason to work within any kind of system or obey certain logical rules. Rules mean nothing to you. You just want to do what you want to do. And that creates chaos. And right now it's organized chaos, but it is just waiting to break out. And once it's revealed to be what it actually is, it will look like chaos. And it's not good. Chapter 3 is called Fear Itself. And, you know, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. That's really a true statement. Because you don't realize how many things are actually coming from fear. How I think of ego is almost like a made-up identity of who you are. You sort of build an idea of who you are and who you ought to be and the way that the world around you is and ought to be. And it's not really based in reality. All that you really are is energy, and energy can be manipulated for positive or negative. But you also have the potential to be loving and positive and working kind of within this, you know, faith or just coming from a place of fear. And fear is all about control. So that's what ego is. You're building up an idea of who you are and who you should be. I'm sorry, I just keep hearing noises from over there. That's why I keep looking that way. But you're building up an identity around yourself. And then when it breaks down, because it's not real, because it's not based in anything in nature or anything in science, it's just an idea of who you think you are. And you weren't born with that. You built it. And it was usually built from what you were told you were supposed to be, or fears about who you don't want to be. And it's always negative. It's always, you know, if you're making decisions from a place of fear, it's going to look like you are saying, what do I not want to happen? What results do I definitely not want to see? And it's always negative stuff. It's always afraid of what you don't want. And you're not really thinking about what you do want or why you would want it. And you're not thinking about how you deserve it. Or I think one of the most important things to just sit with is the idea that nothing matters. To just say nothing matters and relax and just stop worrying about everything. And then you're able to kind of think without a bias, without fear, when you understand that nothing matters, because fear is always related to the idea that something matters on some level and you are responsible for it. Because if you weren't responsible for anything and nothing mattered, what could you possibly have to be afraid of? What could you possibly have to gain from seeking control? So when I say that people are making decisions from a place of fear and ego and control, what I'm saying is that they're making a decision that is based on an idea of who they are that isn't really accurate, because someone can, you know, point something out to you and then that illusion becomes a little bit shattered. There's a crack in it. And you're like, you know what? You're making me uncomfortable because you're making me question if I even know who I am, the identity that I thought I had, the person that I want to be, or that I think I am, or that I think I want to be. You're making me question it. And that shouldn't be possible. No one should be able to do that if it's really you. And that's why it's ego. And that's kind of, you know, you don't want to hear anything that threatens that identity that you've built for yourself, because you don't really know who you are without it. So that's where the fear comes in. You're afraid of that result. And what it really is at the end of the day is just control. You're just trying to have control. So yeah, the first thing I wrote here is that we have the energy to care just enough about our reasons not to change. Yeah, when I wrote that, I was thinking about how we tend to think about what reasons we have to not do something. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. It's it's interesting. I was actually just talking to somebody. This was a couple weeks ago. Obviously, I did not make this the day that it was posted, or the day that you're watching it. Either one. I didn't make it on this day. So, but the day that I made this, the day before, I just had an interaction with a person who really had a lot of energy to say that he wanted to change. He wanted to get somewhere or do something. And at the same time, he seemed to be more invested in making excuses why he couldn't make those changes rather than invested in making sure those changes happen. And I was giving him options. I was giving him a number of options, and he kept shooting all of them down and just saying, no, 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 none of those will work, none of those will work. Didn't even bother looking into it, didn't put any extra thought into it, just insisted that it wouldn't work. And I was kind of helpless in that situation. And it's none of my business. At the end of the day, I don't have to make sure other people learn what I think they should learn. It's not my job. But when you're interacting with people, it's you don't really want to feel like you're not being heard. Otherwise, you might as well not even be interacting with them. So it just was interesting. And whenever I have conversations like this, I'm always thinking about, kind of in an objective way what it means, and not really getting too emotional or personally involved, because then it just becomes illogical and stressful, and you kind of gotta stand back. And that's why I'm using this as an example, because I feel like it happened just before I made this video for a reason, because it is kind of relevant. Excuse me, it is kind of relevant. But, he doesn't believe in karma, which means he thinks that it's his job to deliver justice. He thinks that it's his job to teach someone a lesson or wrong someone who wronged him. The idea of treating people the way you want to be treated has been twisted into, this person hurt me, so I should hurt them. And it's sort of like, it's really unhealthy to think that way, just for your own self. You really don't want to be dragging yourself down with worries about how other people should be living their lives. And, when you are so obsessed with someone who wronged you, you really have to just understand that we're all going through the same experience. Everyone is kind of, not necessarily the same, because we're all at different points. It's almost like a school where everyone is in a different grade, and you wouldn't judge a kindergartner for not having the information of a fifth grader. And you really have to just understand that we're all just learning. Some of us get held back. Sometimes there is someone old enough to be a fifth grader in kindergarten, but that's on them. It's not your job to take care of them, and it's also not your job to judge them. It doesn't mean they're a bad person or a stupid person. It just means their way of learning is different from everyone else's. And maybe it also means that they're refusing to take responsibility for their lives and their decisions. And either way, it doesn't make them a bad person. It just means that they have some growth to do. They have some lessons to learn. And you should be wishing that they learn those lessons and get that healing and growth that they need, instead of judging them as inferior to you and who deserve pain. Pain teaches us sometimes, You can either take pain and think of it as an attack, a completely unfair attack, and you're a victim, or you can take pain and say, this is an opportunity to learn how to heal this pain, and then teach what I've learned out to others who also need to learn this. And just be humble about it. But this person was not humble at all. This person was very hard to talk to, and very stubborn, and insisted. It was very fixated on the idea of being right and wrong, on the idea of something being moral or immoral, and how it's his job to kind of, push forward that justice. And on some level, of course, he was aware that all of that is bullshit, because it is. And you really can't be acting like that without knowing it. You always have access to your higher mind, and your higher mind always knows what is best for you and what is really what you should be doing. And you can just tap into that anytime you want. Just say, you know what should I actually be doing right now? What actually is the best decision to make, the most positive and humble and empathetic and genuinely healthy decision for me and others around me to make? Or you can keep coming from a place of ego, that identity you made up for yourself that isn't real or based on who you actually are. And you can keep focusing on that until eventually enough people point out its flaws to the point where you just realize this isn't me and it was never me, and you just have to let it go. And you can either build up a new identity, or you can just accept yourself for who you are, which is just energy. And you can choose to be love and positivity up high, or negative and low and dark and fear. And this is what I talked about a lot last week. So you should go watch my last week's video. I talked about the 3 tools that you can use to understand existence and everything. But the next thing I have under chapter 3 is that under the right circumstances, your reasons could all break down. And that basically is what I was just saying anyway, is that we have the energy to care just enough about our reasons to not change. but those reasons can break down under the right circumstances because they're not real. They're not reasons, they're excuses. And it's coming from a place of laziness. You really just don't want to do the work. And you tell yourself and you tell other people that you do, that you want to heal, you want to grow, you want to learn. But deep down, you feel more comfortable being a victim. You've made it your identity, and you don't know who you are without it. So a part of you doesn't want to let go of that. And you have to be able to let go of things like that if you want to be able to live in the world and flow in the universe, because everything moves in cycles and flows like a river. And if you get stuck grasping onto a log, it's not going to be there forever. You have to let go. You have to be able to work with things and understand your circumstances are not always going to be in your control. Other people have free will. The world around you can't predict what's going to happen next. And you have to be okay with that. You have to be able to work with it and stop trying so hard to pull everything in and have it be the way you want it to be. Let individuals be individuals. No one owes you anything just because they're your friend or your family or your lover. Whatever it is, they don't owe you anything. They don't have to be just like you. They don't have to be exactly where you are in growth. But if it's a lover, it's generally better to pick someone, because with a lover, it is your choice. It's, you're born into family, and your friends, it's sort of like, it's also a choice with your friends, but it's a little different. When it comes to a lover, it's so intimate and it's so important that you make sure you choose someone who is kind of on your same level of growth, and you can both grow together and support each other in growing, instead of someone who's like, they're here and you're over here, and then you just grow apart. And that's okay. It doesn't even mean that your if you end up growing apart just because you were growing at different rates, or that person was in kindergarten and you were in second grade or whatever it is, like it doesn't mean that it was pointless, that it was a mistake, because you both still learned things from each other, and you both still gave each other positive energy and supported each other during that time. In that time, you were what each other wanted. You just grew out of it. And that's okay. Not everything has to last forever. Nothing's going to last forever anyway. Just because you find a relationship that lasts to the end of your life doesn't mean it's going to continue in the next life or the next life. Doesn't mean it's going to continue on the other side in the afterlife. It's, nothing needs to last forever, because there is infinity. Everything is forever. So you'd get bored if you were just with the same people all the time. You want to move around, and it's nice to go back and interact with people who you used to work with a lot. That familiarity is nice and comforting, and it can be good to work with someone who you're familiar with from past life interactions. But it doesn't mean that you're supposed to always be together, that that's your person, your twin flame. It's not that simple, and it doesn't need to be. It shouldn't be, because it's really not about completing yourself or finding your other half. But the last thing I have is let go of control, let go of fear, and let's see what we can accomplish. That pretty much sums it up. The reason that I put this chapter 3 at the end of this political video is because I want to inspire people to have hope, because this can be a very dark topic, and people get very, very angry when it comes to politics. Republican Party, Democratic Party, whatever it is. People are always insisting that the other party is full of shit. And have you ever considered, maybe that's because both parties are full of shit. There are flaws to point out on the other side, because both sides are inherently flawed, because they're part of a system that is deeply flawed for the reasons I explained during the first 2 chapters. These 2 parties that you can choose from, they're given to you as options by the problem. So they're not the solution. It doesn't matter which one you pick. If you're a Republican and you think you've figured everything out, and you know all the conspiracies, and you know everything that's going on, check yourself, because you really are a miserable person who is isolating people who could be close to you, because you think you're right about everything, and you have got to really rearrange your mentality. And if you're a Democrat, you're probably closer to the right track, because that mentality tends to be more based on what is for the greater good and being kind to others. But again, the actual policies aren't necessarily the solutions to accomplish those goals. So you really have to just kind of, take it without putting yourself in a label. If you want to call yourself leftist, that could work. But generally, it's better to just understand what you want to accomplish and think about how you can accomplish it, and be very practical and logical with it, and make sure that you're not coming from a place of fear. And you understand that it's about creating a world where people can have a better space to learn and grow and go through all these trials in life, instead of a system that just is completely tilted against them and makes it way harder than it should be just to do very basic human things. and this is part of it. This is part of that growth. You have to learn to do this. So bottom line is don't blame other things and other people for your problems. You're not a victim of circumstance. You don't have to be cynical and miserable about the world for the way that it is. You always have the choice to be happy. They say happiness is a choice, but they don't really tell you what the other option is. And the other option is fear and control. The other option is about holding on to something that you have grown so familiar with that you don't even realize it, but you don't know who you are without it. And you're refusing to let go of that. Consciously, you know that you should be growing and evolving and trying to seek happiness, but you just refuse to let go of the things that are weighing you down from achieving that. And that's on you. So you have to stop blaming other people. And I think if we all accepted this, we could fix this issue, this big club issue, because it really is a big club that we're not in. We are being fed information that is just complete bullshit all over the place. And the only place that you're really going to get accurate information is from your own higher mind, from your intuition, and from other people who genuinely have integrity and know what they're talking about. And you, again, are going to have to use your own discernment to know that, because you can't just trust everything you hear from anyone. You have to stop hearing information and immediately saying, oh my God, this contradicts something I thought I knew. What am I going to do? I'm panicking. Now I don't know anything. Like, just relax. Or you could do the opposite and say, this contradicts something I thought I knew. It must be bullshit because I know everything. Like, calm down. Between those two extremes, there is truth and there is peace. And you can just hear your higher mind when you're not afraid, when you're relaxing. Because fear is ego. It's this idea that that somehow you're like owed something, and that somehow you're a victim of chaos, which is making it all about you, which is where I say that it's ego, because you're making it all about yourself, and it's not all about you. When you're afraid of how someone else, I could give you an example, like you make somebody uncomfortable, and then you realize, because you're not stupid, you realize that you've made them uncomfortable, and rather than coming over to them and hugging them and saying, if I made you uncomfortable, I'm so sorry, and I really hope that I can make you more comfortable, and you just tell me what you want me to do, if you really care. But you don't have to do that. If you make somebody uncomfortable, and then your immediate reaction is, how can I explain myself in a way that makes them understand that I wasn't saying something in the way that they interpreted it? How can I help them understand that they were reading into it too much, that they were basically wrong to be uncomfortable about what I was doing and saying, and that they just were misinterpreting my intentions? How can I make them understand that? You're thinking about yourself. You're thinking about how this can make you more comfortable, and you're not really thinking about the other person at all. You're just thinking about the result that you want, which is for everything to be okay between the two of you. And I see this happen all the time. It's a very, very common issue. A lot of people have no idea when it's being done to them or when they're doing it, but you just have to be mindful in every moment. Don't spare a day. Don't say, I'm taking a day off from being mindful. It's completely pointless, and it doesn't help anybody or anything. So, as usual, if you have any questions or anything you want me to elaborate on or clarify, go ahead and leave it in the comments, and I will answer you. You've probably, if you're watching this in the premiere, you probably asked some questions already, and I can answer them as a reply. But if you are not watching this when it's premiering, then just leave a comment in the comment section, and I will answer your questions there. But also check the live chat replay to see if you have one of your questions that was answered there. So, I think I generally covered everything, and I feel like there's always more. There definitely is, because this is such a big topic and there's so much to say. It really cannot be covered in one 30-minute video, but I think I got generally what I wanted to say into this video. And the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. So stop being afraid of conspiracies. Stop being afraid of, things outside of your control. Just let go of fear and see what you can accomplish. See what we can accomplish together if we all collectively let go of fear and start working together. Just put our egos aside and accept that we're all kind of connected, and that's it. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next week. I will actually be live next week. I hope, anyway. But as of right now, I can't think of a reason why I wouldn't be. So yeah, sorry for the 2-week break. but at least I had something prepared for you. So, yeah, see you next week, and thank you for watching.